What's up, YouTube? It's Carolina Calvin. I thought about it earlier, and I actually had fun doing talking shit about John Cena. So I said, why not do something a little bit more positive towards the whole wrestling product? And if you want to stay positive with it, you gotta go back. You can't do any of the stuff now, and if you do, you have to really nitpick at some. You have to pick through the fucking trash. I wanted to do a top five, and I thought about this. I was gonna do all time, but now I'm just gonna do a top five. Wrestlers who tenured that I liked in the WWF/WWE. Now these wrestlers obviously some of these went to other companies or were in other companies before the WWF. So with me just doing WWF/WWE, my list from an all-time standpoint will be vastly different because ECW is a whole nother monster, and I could easily do a top five list of just wrestlers at ECW. Legendary product. It was even still just narrowing down to WWF/WWE. It's still a lot I had to obviously leave off. But lists like these are subjective, so everybody's list is gonna be different. Some people are gonna have the same things, whatever. But here's with wrestling, it's the character, or it could be the character, it could be wrestling. Just I guess what you liked about that particular character or how they wrestled. Number five. I'm gonna start with. There's actually people might be surprised by this pick, but a fan favorite to now, and even then he was Jeff Hardy. And you would say, what is he doing on somebody's top five list? The guy put his body on the line, and he had some of his best matches in WWE. He was in the WWF, WWE, and I remember they had one of the first TLC matches, which you wanted to see something like that, you can go to ECW, but when they were started to try to go the hardcore route, Jeff Hardy, he takes I think it was in the first TLC match, Ed speared him. He was hanging on to the belt. He was hanging on to the belt, and Ed speared him, and from the rope where the belt was at to the mat, perfect. It was a perfect bump. The guy took bumps like few others. I mean, and combined with that, he put his body on the line every single match. And you gotta respect that. I mean, these guys are breaking bones and getting all types of injuries for the enjoyment of the fans. And this guy was one of those guys that constantly gave 110%. And his was he technical, super technical? No, but he was a high flyer, and that was the whole draw with Jeff Hardy. Number four was Bret Hart. Now Bret Hart is more technical. And he wrestled some great matches. Stone Cold, Mr. Perfect, of course, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. We all know 97, and of course Bret Hart's my number four. If I didn't already mention that, we already know in 97 the Montreal Screwjob, and the bad blood between him and the company itself. He ended up going over to WCW. I'm sorry, and still was great there, and was a big reason why the product was during that late 90s was watched quite a bit. And plus the guy, I always liked the sharpshooter. It was always one of my favorite submissions. It was the sharpshooter. I think that was the reason why I did like Bret Hart, was because of that move. Number three, Hulk Hogan. Now Hulk Hogan's best years with the WWF was in the 80s and obviously you can go back. They got tapes, DVDs, shit, YouTube. You can go back and watch all the stuff. And the guy, both he really brought that type of character, Hulkamania and all that. He really brought. You could say, 80 swag is different from how it is now, but he really brought that, and he was one of the first guys that really brought that and kind of transcended into like a celebrity status. I mean, he was just as big as as most celebrities in the 80s, and no one cannot they can't deny that. Some of his best wrestling was obviously in Japan. A lot of people don't know that, but most of his best wrestling was in Japan. In the WWF, it was more the character than the actual wrestler, and I respected that, and he's the reason so many people are fans of the wrestling business, in the first place. So I definitely got to give him credit for that. Number 2, and number 1, number 2 is to me it's close. A lot of people will say one or the other, obviously, but number 2, I got The Rock. The Rock his character was always larger than life. Kind of like he kind of came out like a superstar, like wearing designer shirts, shoes, coming out with the shades on. I didn't like how he started Rocky Maivia, but I believe when they gave him creative control over his own character, that's when he really propelled himself to legendary status. The whole Rocky Maivia, from what I've researched, that wasn't the character he wanted to do, but he switched to The Rock. His best feuds were with Stone Cold, bar none. That was his best feud, and it's if you go look at some of people's favorite feuds, the Stone Cold Rock feuds definitely in an all-time scale is one of the best feuds that ever been put forth on wrestling. Of course we know he still comes back. He came back. Kind of what made me move him down is the whole John Cena thing. If you'd asked me this 3 years ago, I'd have Rock at number 1. But the whole John Cena thing, fuck that. Fuck John Cena. You don't shake his hand. But even still, the guy is still one of my favorite wrestlers that to watch him do it. The one thing I always found funny, which a lot of people do, is the overselling of the stunner. That was the one move he oversold, where he'll literally do a backflip. He oversold. It was hilarious to see him oversell that move, but the guy was underrated in the ring. Actually, he was underrated in the ring. A lot of people look at the character, and he came out and made jokes. Excellent on the mic. I mean, during the Attitude Era, he said some of the funniest shit of just about anybody in the Attitude Era. And just watching him go on the mic, you had to tune in. And even when he came back to the WWE with all the PG garbage, when he went on the mic, people tuned in. I know I did, and it's hard for me to get into the part, but when he came back on the mic, I definitely had to watch. Last but not least, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna go through some of my other guys that were hovering around the list, and if I was doing the top 10, would probably be on that. Eddie Guerrero, Edge, Kurt Angle. Let's see, Chris Benoit. A lot of people don't. I don't want to get into that, but there's a few. It's just a whole list, and I just really just came with this list off the top of my head. And those are some of the guys that I left off, but those guys are still legends. Still enjoy watching those. But if I'm gonna pick 5, here's the 5 I'm gonna pick on my list. Now back to the list. Last but not least, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Everybody know he was with ECW. He was with ECW first. But he really became a legend when he entered the WWF, without question. I mean, you talk about the Attitude Era, and it's synonymous with, his character. The badass drinking beer, and if you look at it, a guy like look at a guy like Sandman, ECW. Stone Cold took some inspiration from that, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Hell no. Especially the product for the WWF began to struggle. He literally revived it, and a lot of people will tell you that he literally revived and really started the Attitude Era. So just for all the money that's in McMahon's pockets, that's one of the guys you should be thanking right there, because that's what made the product. I mean, at one point, late '90s, the WWF was honestly more watched. I want to say 99, early 2000s. The WWF, which was called then, was more watched than the NBA. At times, and that is crazy. Seeing that, you know how popular the NBA is. But Stone Cold was the guy. He came in. He didn't give a damn about no one. He came in drinking beer. Of course, some of his feuds. He had the feud with Rock. The Vince McMahon feud was definitely one of the funniest. I honestly don't think it was better than The Rock's, but his feud with The Rock, because of obviously the wrestling part of it. But his feud with Vince McMahon was funny, and some of the things they did during the Attitude Era, I think that's why people look at it today. Guys like Stone Cold, when you saw him get on the mic, you didn't know what the hell he was gonna say. You know he was gonna talk trash. You knew he was gonna do that, but you didn't know what the hell he was gonna say. And you tuned in. It's just like The Rock. You tuned in every week just to see what he was gonna say. And now, it's PG. It's the guys can't say certain things, can't do this, can't do that. The matches, some of the moves have been dumbed down. Pile driver, several moves like that have been dumbed down. But during the Attitude Era, with guys like Stone Cold, he brought, no pun intended, but he brought attitude to the wrestling business in a time where it seriously needed it. But that's my list. Tell me your top 5 list, favorite wrestlers. As I said, it's subjective, so just let me know who's on it. I'll probably be doing the ECW top 5. I don't know. I actually might think about that one, but I definitely have a top 5 for that. That's a whole different monster. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.